I've always been a writer from the age of 6, and I think a lot of people that are other poets that have been writing, and other people that consider themselves writers have been writing from a very young age. And there's something about being a victim of a sexual assault, a rape, that kind of entirely destroys your sense of self. And makes you question if you are capable of doing the things that you did before you were attacked. So I wrote this piece of prose, literally it was like 3-4 weeks after my own attack. And I mean, I was in this weird haze of PTSD, and everything was really surreal and traumatic. But at some point I had this moment where I sat down and I wrote this, and it took me a half hour to write. And then I finished it, and I read it, and I'm like, that's actually pretty good. And I was like, okay, but that was somehow reassuring, because it was a reassurance that despite of everything that had happened, I'm like, I can still write, and if I can still write, that means I am still me on some level. And I mean, it took years for me to come back to this writing, but I knew, I put it away, and I'm like, okay, years later, I'm gonna turn this into a novel, which is what I've done. So I think there's something about our own creative energy that helps us to reverse the destructiveness that comes with being being a victim of this kind of experience. And I guess that's why I believe in the arts so much, and why the arts have a redemptive role to play in our lives, and that's why I did this festival. But so Dark Chapter is a novel that I have, I'm almost done writing, and it was 200,000 words, so it's super long, and I've cut it down. And it's pretty much based on my own assault, but it's told from the point of view of both the victim and the perpetrator. But in this section I'm reading, you're only going to hear from one of those perspectives. So this is the opening of Dark Chapter. They say events like this change your life forever. That your life will never be the same as it was the day before it happened, or even 2 hours before it happened, when I stood waiting for that bus out of Belfast. It's not worth it, just give up the trail and go home. But she wouldn't listen anyway. She is too stubborn, too determined to hike this trail on a day this crisp and clear. And now, it's too late. She is an isolated country, and even if she were to turn back, she would inevitably encounter him, because he is behind her. By now she has gained the slope and found the trail which runs between a sunlit pasture and the steep incline of the glen. She pauses for a moment, breathing in the beauty of this green track, the tree branches arching over the path, the bright field which stretches to her left. She's escaped the city finally. This is where the countryside really begins. It seems like a little bit of heaven for one last peaceful moment. But she is perched on the edge, and to her right the ground plunges sharply into the ravine. One misstep off the path would lead to trouble. The river column below is a distant roar. The air up here smells of manure and sun and warm grass, and lazy insects drift in the filtered light beneath the trees. And then, glancing down the wooded chasm to her right, she sees him coming up the slope, trying to hide in the brush of the forest. Something skips unnaturally in the beat of her heart. Only then does she realize she's being followed. Now, years later, it is as if I am the one following my earlier self, haunting her every step like some guardian angel arrived too late. She parts the branches in front of her, and I do it too, invisibly. She quickens her pace to lengthen the distance between him, and I fall in step. She instinctively knows she must reach the open ground before he catches her, so she tries to cover the last few yards of the path as it clears a ridge. With an invisible hand, I want to stay the little bastard, lock him into position like a rugby player, while shouting to her to keep on going, to reach the meadow, and then abandon the trail, forget about the hike, just head straight to the busy road and go home. But I am powerless to stop it. Events must unfold as they already have. The past is our past, so I am stranded here on this side of the ravine, watching as he catches up to her. I don't want to see the rest of it. I have replayed it enough times already. If I could just freeze it there, in that final moment, perched between the sunlit pasture and the plunging abyss, then everything would still be fine. Only then, it would not be my life. It would be someone else's pleasant stroll through the Irish countryside on a spring afternoon. But my journey turned out to be a little different. Thank you.